There comes a point in life when words begin to fail. Not because language isn't beautiful, but because it starts to feel like a shield. We explain to be understood, to defend ourselves from being misread, to justify what our intuition already knows. But the truth doesn't require a debate. It only asks to be lived. So, if you've grown tired of explaining yourself, of rehearsing your authenticity for an audience that still doesn't feel you, this message is for you. Because what if your peace isn't found in convincing the world, but in aligning so deeply with your own truth that the world adjusts on its own? The problem with explaining is that it keeps the mind on stage. It feeds the ego's favorite illusion, that understanding comes from control. But alignment happens in silence, in surrender, in the small, invisible moments when you choose coherence over chaos. The world teaches us to clarify, justify, and persuade. But the soul whispers, be still. Become what you mean. You can't argue someone into resonance. You can only embody the frequency that makes explanation unnecessary. We live in an age obsessed with expression. Everyone has a platform, a story, a take. We are constantly performing versions of ourselves, hoping someone will finally see us correctly. But the more we explain, the further we drift from the simplicity of being. It's like describing a sunrise while ignoring the light touching your face. At some point, the commentary becomes a barrier to experience. So what if you stopped explaining your peace, your boundaries, your transformation, and instead became so congruent with your essence that the right people just feel it? Here's the tension. Explaining feels safe. It feels like control, but it's often a subtle form of fear. Fear that if you don't make them understand, you'll lose love. Fear that if you don't justify your growth, you'll be abandoned. Fear that if you stop explaining, you'll be seen as arrogant, cold, or detached. Yet, there's a deeper cost to over-explaining. It drains your spiritual voltage. Every explanation is a small leakage of energy from your being into someone else's misunderstanding. You keep pouring light into conversations that can't hold it. And slowly, your alignment begins to flicker. Think of how often you've tried to explain a spiritual realization to someone who wasn't ready to hear it. You saw their eyes glaze, their energy retract, their skepticism tighten the air. That moment teaches you something profound. Truth shared before readiness becomes noise. The mystics understood this. That's why the deepest teachings were given in silence, in presence, in gesture. Because truth vibrates. It's not transferred through grammar, but through state. And when you're aligned, your very existence communicates more than your explanations ever could. Alignment isn't about being perfect. It's about being coherent. Your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions, all moving in the same direction. No inner civil war, no pretending to be at peace while resenting in secret. No saying yes when your body screams no. When you align, your life starts to harmonize naturally. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities magnetize. Even silence begins to work for you. People feel the truth of who you are before you open your mouth. That's the quiet power of spiritual alignment. It doesn't need a defense. It is the evidence. Explaining is the mind's attempt to own truth. Alignment is the soul's way of becoming it. When you explain, you translate your essence into symbols the other might approve of. When you align, you express from a field that needs no permission. And yes, some will misinterpret you. Some will project, resist, or judge. Let them. That is their level of coherence meeting yours. If you start chasing after every misunderstanding, you'll lose the frequency that made you luminous in the first place. There's a story about a Zen monk who was asked to explain enlightenment. He simply poured a cup of tea until it overflowed, then smiled. No words, just alignment in action. Because truth, when lived, creates its own language. It speaks through the way you move, the energy you carry, the choices you make when no one is watching. And that language is universal. It bypasses the intellect and touches the heart directly. We live in a time when everyone wants to be understood, but few are willing to be transformed. We want validation more than vibration. We want applause for our awakening before it's even rooted. But alignment doesn't perform. It transmits. When you align, you stop explaining because you no longer need the echo of approval to confirm your sound. You realize understanding is not the highest currency, integrity is. Let's be honest. Explaining feels like connection, but it's often a symptom of disconnection from yourself. You explain when you're unsure whether your truth is valid. You explain when you're afraid that silence will cost you something. You explain because the noise makes you feel like you still belong. But silence is not absence. It's presence purified. There's a moment in every spiritual path where your words stop keeping up with your becoming, where you can no longer summarize your inner life without diluting it. That's not regression. That's evolution. You're not losing your voice. You're gaining resonance. It takes courage to live without explaining, to walk away from the need to narrate your becoming, to let your transformation be misunderstood for a while. But something miraculous happens in that silence. Life begins to explain you. You stop trying to convince others of your worth, and the universe starts reflecting it back through synchronicity, peace, and power. You stop forcing people to see you, and you start meeting people who just do. You stop defending your boundaries because your energy field now speaks louder than your words. That's alignment. It's not passive. It's magnetic. When your inner and outer worlds match, you become transparent to the divine. Everything you do carries a strange weight, a quiet gravity. People sense it, even if they can't name it. Your silence becomes sacred. Your presence becomes instruction. This is why mystics withdrew to the mountains, not because they hated the world, but because they knew the language of alignment needs stillness to form. When they returned, they didn't preach. They radiated. And those who were ready found transformation simply by being near them. Ask yourself, how much of your communication is defense, not dialogue? How much of your explaining comes from a wound, not wisdom? How many times Have you betrayed your alignment to preserve someone else's comfort? Every time you shrink your truth to make it palatable, you fracture your own coherence. Every time you justify your peace, you step back into the noise you worked so hard to transcend. The goal isn't to convince anyone. It's to become undeniable, not by volume, but by vibration. There's a subtle power in restraint. When you resist the urge to over-explain, you create space for others to rise into their own awareness. You honor their process instead of forcing your perception upon it. And in that space, something ancient begins to move. The same intelligence that turns stars into galaxies begins to reorder your relationships, your opportunities, your sense of time itself. That's the rhythm of alignment, effortless precision, divine choreography. But alignment is not static. It's a continual tuning. Every choice, every thought, every conversation, a chance to either amplify or distort your signal. You align not once, but daily, through honesty, through presence, through saying no when your soul aches for simplicity. Sometimes alignment will isolate you for a season. It will feel like exile, like you're vanishing from the narrative of your old life. But isolation is not punishment, it's calibration. When the soul is adjusting its frequency, it must withdraw from interference. And then, without announcement, you begin to meet others vibrating at your new level of clarity. They don't need your explanations. They mirror your truth. They speak a silent language that says, I see you. I've been there. Keep going. This is how aligned souls find each other, not through convincing, but through coherence. They don't cling, they recognize, because what is aligned doesn't chase. It attracts. So stop explaining your peace to those committed to chaos. Stop unpacking your vision for those without the eyes to see. Stop offering your depth to conversations built on surface. Your energy is sacred architecture. Stop renting it out for validation. When you stop explaining, you start listening to what life is mirroring back, to how your body responds, to what your silence reveals. And soon, you'll find that what you were trying to say with words was already being communicated by your presence all along. You will know you are aligned when peace no longer feels fragile. When your calm is not contingent on understanding, but anchored in embodiment. When your relationships shift naturally, some falling away like leaves in autumn, others emerging with the quiet certainty of spring. You won't need to justify it, because what is true requires no explanation, only expression through alignment. You'll walk differently. You'll speak slower. You'll listen deeper. You'll carry the calm gravity of someone who has stopped auditioning for belonging. You belong because you exist. You align because you remember. In the end, explaining is about language. Alignment is about vibration. One tries to prove, the other simply is. The world will pull you back into explanation again and again. It will tempt you to justify your silence, your pace, your boundaries, but stay rooted. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to embody what few are ready to hear. So when the urge arises to explain, pause. Feel the space behind the words. Let the silence speak first. because often silence is the sound of alignment deepening. And one day, someone will ask how you became so peaceful, so sure, so whole. And you'll smile gently, knowing that no explanation could capture it. You'll just say, I stopped trying to be understood. I started becoming the understanding itself.